Hey, what's going on guys? My name is Richard Moglen and welcome to another video. And today is the start of my new Python for Finance series where I'm going to go over how to do many different things in Python, from backtesting strategies, creating stock screeners, monitoring your portfolio automatically, all these different things. So if you're excited for this series, let me know by clicking the like button down below, and to make sure that you don't miss a single episode, hit that red subscribe button as well. Now in this video, it's going to be kind of the beginning and introduction to programming and Python in general. So we're going to be downloading Python, checking that it's installed correctly, and writing our first two programs. So if you're already a little bit familiar with Python, feel free to use the timestamps in the description to kind of skip around and go where you're going to learn something new. But to start with, I want to give a little bit of an introduction to this series. So this video is the start of the backtesting section of this series. And in this section, what we're going to be doing is building up to my red, white, blue backtest program, which I've talked a little bit about on Twitter. And that looks a little bit like this, where it's a little bit complicated to just jump in right away. So I thought I'd make this kind of intermediary video to kind of help explain and introduce Python in general. And then right now, my plan is to then go into stock screening, and the culmination video of that is going to be rebuilding Mark Minervini's trend template using Python for free. So that will be able to take the entire stock market and weed out every stock that Mark Minervini wouldn't even look at. So that's very exciting. But today we're going to start with the basics. So the first thing we got to do is go ahead and make sure that we've downloaded Python. So if you haven't yet, go ahead to your browser and type in python.org. Then once you're there, you want to click downloads, and then you're going to select the platform that you're on. So I'm on Windows, so I would go ahead and click download Python 3.8 right now. And you want to make sure that you are downloading Python 3. That's the version that I'm going to be using and writing my programs in. So once you've done that, you should get a download executable file, and you want to click that and follow all the steps. And once that's downloaded, you're going to go ahead and make sure that it's downloaded correctly. So to do that, we're going to go to the command prompt, and you want to type in Python. And this should bring up the version that you've downloaded. I've got 3.80. And if this doesn't show up, you've done something wrong, and you should go back to python.org. But now that we've checked that, we can write quit, and now we're ready to actually start programming in Python. So before we jump into actually writing all the syntax, I want to give a brief introduction to the command prompt, which is what we're going to use to access and run our Python files. So this is kind of an alternate way of navigating your computer. And right now we're in my overall files, the Richard folder. So my Python files are all stored in documents and then a Python folder in documents. So let's navigate to that folder. So to navigate to the documents which are in the Richard folder, I want to type in cd documents. And now we're in the documents folder, and then we can do cd Python. So this is where all my files are that I want to run. And to see what's in this folder, I can type in dir, and it will bring up a list of all the different programs that I could run at this time. And to go backwards, which is very useful to know, you type in cd ... And now we're back to documents. Let's do it one more time. And now we're back in the Richard folder. You can also go straight to the Python folder by doing cd documents/Python. So that's basics of the command prompts. If you're using a Mac, you're going to use your terminal, which is slightly different, but you should be able to look up and Google the commands that you're going to need. So now the next step is to actually write the Python program. And to do this, you're going to need a text editor. And you can use the basic Notepad, but what I recommend getting is what I use, which is called Sublime Text. And the reason I like this is because it automatically color codes a whole bunch of different syntax which just makes everything very organized and easy to read. So once you've downloaded that, or if you're just going to use Notepad, that's fine too. What you're going to do is make a new text file. And what we're going to be doing here is writing the first program you should do in every single language, which is printing hello world. So to do this, we're going to write print parentheses, and then in those parentheses, we're going to write hello world. And you might notice that it isn't color coded like my other program was, and that's because right now this is just a text file. My computer doesn't know that this is a Python file. So let's go ahead and save it as a Python file. And I'm going to call it hello world.py. You can see I've already done this. And now it's color coded for us. So to run this program, we're going to go back to our command prompt and we're going to write Python and then the name of our program, which is hello world.py. So there you go. That's your first program in Python, printing hello world to the command prompt. It's pretty basic, but that's just to make sure that Python's running correctly and that you know how to actually use the command prompt. So now that we've done that, I want to give a brief introduction to loop structures and logic so that we can use those to write our more complex programs. So the first thing I want to cover is the while loop, which basically has this structure. So while condition do this. So this is a loop that will continuously do whatever this says if this condition here is true. So let's go ahead and say while true, print hello. Save that and let's run it and see what happens. You can see I actually made a syntax error. You got to be careful with all of your cases. So this print should be lowercase. So let's save that and run it again. And you can see now we've got an infinite loop that will print hello continuously until we stop the program. So to do that, press Control C, and now we can go back and edit our file. So that is the while loop. I also want to introduce the for loop, which looks pretty similar. For x in 1, 4, 5, 6, let's go ahead and print x. So how Python differentiates what's in a loop and what's out of a loop is this indent here. So if the print was like this, it would not be in this for loop. So you got to keep track of those indents. So let's go ahead and run this and see what it does. So a useful thing to know is instead of rewriting your entire program.py, you can press the up arrow and it automatically inputs the last thing you wrote. So go ahead and press enter. And you can see I made another error. I forgot a semicolon. So go ahead and do that. And now you can see for each of those numbers, it printed x. So that is one way to use the for loop. You can also do for x in range 10. And what this does is it runs 10 times. And it's key to notice that it starts at 0 instead of 1 because Python is 0 index. And this will be useful to know for later when we need to count the number of columns in our data frame. So last thing I need to show you guys before we get started is the if statement. So let's go ahead and write if condition 1 do this, elif condition 2 do that, and then else then do this. So if statements are kind of like while loops. They check a condition, and then if that's true, it runs whatever is inside here. However, they're not an infinite loop. It's not a loop. So it will run once and then carry on to the next thing. So how the program reads this is if condition 1 is true, it does this. If it isn't true, then it goes to condition 2, and if that is true, then it does that. But if none of those conditions are true, it does whatever's in the else tab. So this will only run if none of these conditions are true. So that is the kind of basic logic structure that I want to go over. And now we can actually go ahead and start building our final code. And what this is going to do is it's going to prompt the user for a stock ticker symbol, and then it will print out going back in time when the stock was above or below a specific moving average. So that is the overall program that we'll be writing, and the final code will look something like what I have right here. So go ahead and build a new file, and you can see here I've got this stuff in red. These are libraries that we're going to have to download. So I'm going to copy this over to here. So to download these libraries, you're going to have to go back to your command window, and then you're going to type in for each of them pip install pandas. And you can see I've already downloaded pandas, so I don't have to do it again. But for each of those, pandas, Numpy, yfinance, you'll have to do that same process. So pause the video and then come back once all those libraries are downloaded. And this is a good time to leave a like down below on the video if you hadn't already. So once those are downloaded, we're ready to finally get started with our program. So the first thing we have to do is activate a kind of workaround for Yahoo Finance. So they changed how they get stock data a couple of years ago, so we have to use this workaround. So all you have to type is yf.pdr_override here. And this just activates that workaround. And the next thing we want to do is ask the user what stock they want to look up. So we're going to save whatever they enter as the variable stock. And let's set that equal to their input. And in the input, we're going to ask them enter a stock ticker symbol. And I'm going to set a colon and a space just so it looks more clean on the command prompt. So let's go ahead and print that result. So print stock, save that. And you can see I actually haven't saved it yet. So let's go ahead and name that Python tut1. And it's a Python file, so that's saved. And then you're going to go your command window and type in the same thing, Python space Python tut1.py. Press enter, and it's going to prompt me for a stock ticker. So I'm going to say the QQQ, and you can see it just prints that back to me. So now that we have the stock ticker, we need two more parameters. We need the start date for the data and the end date for the data. So for the start date, we're going to actually split that up into three different things: the year, the month, and the day. So start year equals, let's say 2019, start month equals January, and start day equals 1. Now we want to make a datetime object out of this, which allows Python to process this as a date. So let's go ahead and write the name of that datetime object will be now. Well, actually, it will be start. And let's set that equal to dt.datetime. And then the order of this is pretty important. So start year goes first, then start month, and then start day. So now we have a datetime object dictating the start of when we want the program to access the data for us. And now we want an end. So I'm going to have this be set as the current time. So I'm gonna have it be now, but you could do another thing just like we did, ending it in 2019 November 11th, for instance. But I'm gonna have it be now. So I'm gonna say it now equals dt.datetime.now. So that basically means that we've got two datetime objects, the start and the now. So we can go ahead and now get all the data and store it in a data frame. And we're going to call this data frame df. And think of this just as like an Excel spreadsheet. It's got columns with titles of things like open, high, low, close. And then all the rows are all the days values. So let's go ahead and get all that data. So df equals pdr dot get dot, or get underscore Yahoo, sorry, get data underscore Yahoo, and then we need to pass it the parameters. So first is the stock name, then the start, and then now. So this is getting all that data, and let's go ahead and print df and see what it looks like. So up arrow, enter, and let's say the QQQ again, and you can see it's accessed all the data from the 1st of 2019 all the way till today's close. And you can see that there's a couple different columns. Open is the 0th column, then high, then low, then close, then adjusted close is the 4th column. And this is what we're going to be using to make our moving averages, because this is the close adjusted for splits and things like that. So let's go ahead and make our moving average. So now that we've got our mainframe, let's go ahead and make our moving average variable, which is going to be a 50-day moving average. And we want to make the title of the column for this moving average. So let's go ahead and say SMA string equals quotes SMA underscore 50. But I do want it to adapt so that if we change this to be 100, for instance, that the SMA string column will automatically say SMA 100. So instead of this, I'm actually going to X out of this and leave that part of the string, but then concatenate the string version of this variable. So let's go strma. So str converts this integer value to a string that can then be used and concatenated with SMA. So now that we've got that, let's go ahead and create the moving average column. So let's go ahead and write df SMA string equals df.iloc brackets colon comma 4 dot rolling window equals MA, and then here is mean. So I'm going to go through and explain all of these. So first, this is creating the column with the name SMA string, and then that column is the rolling moving average with a window size of our moving average, which is 50 days, and that is made from the 4th column in df currently, which is the adjusted close. So that is how you create a simple moving average in Python using Pandas. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and print df to see how that turned out. And let's run it. So let's say QQQ, and now you can see we've got this extra column for our moving average with all the values put in. And you can see that for the first few, there's not any number because there hasn't been 50 days to average yet. So because those first 50 days don't have values, we want to cut out those first 50 rows. So how we do this is we say df equals df.iloc brackets MA colon. So this is going to cut out the first MA values. So let's go ahead and print this. Print df. Let's run that. QQQ. And you can see now we start at 3:15 instead of the 1st of January. So that's all good. We've got our data frame set. We've got our simple moving averages. The only thing left we got to do is iterate through each of those days and check whether or not the closing value is above or below that moving average. So to do that, we're going to use the for loop that we just learned how to do. So for I in df.index colon, and then we're going to start by just printing I and seeing what's actually happening. So let's go ahead and run this program, and let's delete some of these dfs just to keep it nice and clean. So let's run that. QQQ, and you can see it's printing each of the dates. So In this data frame, the dates are the index row of the data frame. So that's exactly what we want. This means that for each of these rows, we can use that I to determine which value we're talking about. So now we want to be able to access the ith value of both the moving average and also the adjusted close, so we can compare the two. So there are a couple ways we can access these values. The first is with iloc once more. So df.iloc, and let's print this. Print df.iloc brackets colon comma 4, and then the ith value of that. So this is going to print the adjusted close for each date. So let's go ahead and save that and then run it. QQQ. And now it's printing all those adjusted close values. However, we don't need to use that method. We can also say just df and then in here write adjusted close, which is the name of that column. So go ahead and run that and it should give you the exact same thing. There you go. And you guessed it, to get the moving average, what we got to do is write in here SMA string, and it should automatically get us all those moving average values. So there you go. That's how you do the moving average and the adjusted close for each row. And now what we have to do is write an if statement in here to compare the two values. So let's go ahead and write that if statement. So if df adg close I is greater than df SMA string I, then we're gonna print the close is higher. And else, copy this. It's got to be the same indent level. The close is lower. So let's see what this looks like. QQQ. You can see for each of those values, it went through and checked that comparison and chose the appropriate result. So let's take this a step further. Let's count the number of times that the close was higher versus the close was lower. So here, let's make a new variable called num h for higher plus equals 1. This basically adds 1 each time. And down here, let's say num c plus equals 1, which adds 1 if it's lower. So now outside the loop, we're going to print str num h, and then copy and paste that and print num c as well. So save that and run it. QQQ. So we didn't define these variables. So before the loop, you have to go num h equals 0 and num c equals 0. There you go. So you can see that the close was higher 158 times while it was lower only 49 times. So this is kind of basic manipulation, but it introduces you to a lot of the ideas that we're going to be using in the more complex programs. And the red, white, blue backtest program is longer and a little bit more complex, but it uses the same basic ideas. You see if statements, you see for loops. We're going to be following the kind of same main structure for our Python for Finance programs. So I hope you guys found this video useful. And if you have any questions, please leave them down below in the comment section. I'll be happy to get to them and answer them if I can. If not, make sure to Google them. Often, if you've got a question, somebody else has had that before you. And if you have any specific videos that you would like me to cover in this series, let me know down in the comment section below as well. I'm really excited to start this series because Python is something that I really enjoy doing and I find really satisfying. So I hope you guys found this video useful, and please leave a like down below if you did. But other than that, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys in future videos.